Welcome to my channel, Danette Gets Creative. I'm Danette. I'm excited to share with you a new idea that I have. I'm looking at creating a series, creating a ragdoll series, where I'm going to take you from start to finish. So in this episode you will see that I'm going to create the actual doll. So I went online looking for a free pattern that I could print out, and you will see that I found an amazing pattern by Amy Scott. And I just went online and I googled free patterns and her name came up. I found her on Pinterest, but I'm sure if you just Google her, she'll come up as well. If I can remember, I'll link her webpage below. I have my material doubled, and now I'm just tracing around the patterns. I took the patterns and I placed them on cardstock just to make them a little thicker and easier to trace. And as I said, my fabric is doubled, so there's 2 body pieces, 2 head pieces, and then the forearms and legs. I'm just tracing around with one of those heat erase pencils, or pens I mean, and as you see, I'm just pinning them to hold them together, and I will cut them out. So my thoughts for this series, as you're just watching me cut out here, my thoughts for this series are that, as I said, I will create a scrappy ragdoll from beginning to end. So right now, creating the body. Next video, I will create a dress, in which we can use that dress as a basis to create other things. My thoughts are things like embroidery, maybe laces, trims, buttons. I'm looking for suggestions too, so if you're traveling along on this journey with me and you have any suggestions of what you would like to see me try to incorporate into this series, leave a comment below. I'm open for suggestions. So as it sits right now I have the body done, as you'll see at the end of this video, and if you're interested, stick with me, and there'll be a few more in the series until we create a scrappy doll. Now everything is cut out, and I'm just going to show you the pieces laid out on my mat. And now I'm getting ready to stitch. I'm just using white sewing machine cotton, and I'm just going to do a simple little running stitch around all the parts, leaving probably about 1/8 of an inch allowance all the way around. Making sure my stitches are pretty close together, because we will be obviously turning this right side out and stuffing it, so we want our seams pretty tight so that none of the stuffing will come out. So in this little section, I am going to sew around the edges and secure all the pieces together. Alright, all the pieces, I'm just showing you, you're going to sew around all the pieces, and now all my pieces are finished. What I need to do around the edges where it's circular is I need to cut little tiny slits. Careful not to cut your stitches, but little tiny slits where all the edges are curved, just because it allows the material to lay flatter. So you'll notice here that I'm going to turn the head right side out, making sure, oh, and there's my cat. She's always very curious. That's Irma. So what I'm doing is just putting my finger in and making sure all the edges are poked out. I'm going to do the same with the the arms and the legs. I end up using a little pokey tool, a little dowel rod, because it's too difficult to get your fingers in there because it's pretty small. I will also do the same with the legs and get everything turned right side out. And then I'll be ready to stuff it. When I start to stuff it, I also need to use that special little pokey tool, because getting the stuffing in some of those pieces is kind of tricky. So final little bit here, poking out leg number 1, poking out leg number 2, and getting ready to fill it with some stuffing. You can use store-bought stuffing. What I did was I actually took apart an old pillow that was no longer in use, and I just used the stuffing within the pillow. I used the poker, as I mentioned, to get down into the toes. I actually stuffed my rag doll pretty stiff so that she could sit up and hold her shape pretty well. It's up to you how thick you want to stuff it or how firmly you want to stuff it. But you'll see here that I'm going to stuff all the bits and pieces together, and then I'll show you how to sew it together. Okay, I'm going to have the final little bits here sewn together. I'm going to start with the legs and one of the body pieces. And I've taken the leg and I've flattened the seam so that the stitch seam is in the middle of each leg. You'll see right here, I take the edges, stuff the stuffing in, and I align the two seams together. I flip the legs over and I pin them to the body. And then I do the same with the arms. Actually, I apologize. I sew the legs on first, and then I do the same with the arms, folding the two seams together, attaching them to the sides of the body, and then I'm ready to sew the two body parts together. With the legs stuffed and the arms stuffed, it gets pretty tight in there when you're starting to sew it together. So stick with it. Be patient, because it is a bit of a tricky task. I also want to let you know what I did here is I sewed over the seams twice, just to make sure, because there's going to be some movement in the doll, and there's obviously some pressure, as I've mentioned, with the bulky legs and the bulky arms in there, that I wanted to make sure it was secure. The last thing you want is for one of the legs or arms to fall off of your doll after you've put all the work and time into creating it. So just finishing up the legs. Again, same process with the arms. I put the two stitch seams together and I sew both arms on the side. Then I come back in, which is the tricky part. I come back in and line the two body parts up, while the two legs and the two stuffed arms are tucked inside of that small body. So watch carefully. Again, don't get frustrated because it is a bit of a tight squeeze. But once she's done, she's going to be beautiful. Okay, the last arm is sewn on. Then I grab the second body and I start to pin the two pieces together, making sure to secure it at each of the two legs and at the arms. And as I mentioned earlier in the video, it is a really tight squeeze. So put as many pins in there as you can. Get those little parts tucked in the best you can. I really struggled with this one side and trying to get a pin in it. So I end up just taking my thread and start sewing right away. So I sewed around it once, and I actually sewed around it a second time just to make sure the seams would stay tight and not come undone. Because again, we're going to be stuffing the body, and the last thing you want is for the body to have the stuffing come out or an arm and a leg to fall off. So I'm just going to finish up this last little bit. Then I'm going to pull the arms and legs out and make the body right side out, and I will stuff the body. You're going to want to stuff the body pretty firm, just because if you want it to be able to sit up, you need to have the torso firm enough for it to sit. So I'm going to put all the stuffing way down in the bottom, stuff all the way up to the neck, and then you see I will right side the material together at the top, sew the shoulder seams together, and then I add the head. And when I add the head, I actually don't pin it. I just go right in with my sewing machine cotton and needle, and I just start sewing. And as I'm sewing the head, same rule here, I'm actually going to sew around it twice. But before I completely close the head together, as you'll see coming up shortly, I take the time to stuff a little more stuffing in to make the connection between the body and the head firm enough so that the head stays up. So if you keep watching, I'll finish sewing the shoulders. I will stuff the shoulders. That's a tough one to say. Stuff the shoulders. And then I will add the head. Before I finally close it up, I will add some stuffing just to make sure that the head and the body are connected strongly together. And then the ragdoll is complete. Okay, Ragdoll is complete. She's so cute. I want to add a little special touch, and I want to draw a heart. So again, I'm using one of those heat erase pens, drawing my own heart, sketching my own heart, choosing some embroidery thread, and stitching the heart. I end up using a light pink thread. As you will see, I'm going to cut a length. I will take the thread and take the 6 strands and half it, so I only end up sewing with 3 strands. And I will do a satin stitch and fill in the heart. Okay, let's finish up this heart. Couple more stitches left. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope I've inspired you to make your own ragdoll. And I hope that you will stick along with this series and come back and see how I make the dress and how I decorate the dress. Again, as I mentioned earlier, if you have any suggestions on ways we could decorate the dress or things you would like to see me add to the dress or try, please leave a comment below. I'm always open for ideas. Take care. Bye.